Hey there everyone, I'm Jeff, your tabletop technician here in the Dice Tower, and today I'm going to tell you about Faeries and Magical Creatures, a game about... You know what, I have no idea what this game is about. Okay, let me see if I can break down this game from Glendrover and Forbidden Games, the same power team behind such titles as Raccoon Tycoon, Lizard Wizard, and Mosaic, A Story of Civilization. And that's gonna be a little tough to do because this game mixes a lot of elements that aren't normally seen together. First, there's worker placement, then there's deck building, then there's polyomino tile placement, and why not a little area control on top of that. Now on their turn, a player can optionally play any card and then can choose one of 5 actions here on the main board, and they can do those in any order, but all players get to copy the chosen action. And since most of these actions involve the cards in this game, let me cover these first. This action lets everyone play a card, letting the active player play up to 2 cards on their turn. This action lets players draft a card from the market. The market contains one more card than there are players, so after everyone takes a card in turn order, the remaining card is placed under the deck. This action would let a player first discard a card they don't want, and then draw up to a hand size of 5 cards. At least I think that's how this action works because, well, you know what, I'll come back to it. This action lets you choose a polyomino tile from a market that inexplicably provides one less option than the card market. With your tile chosen, you can place it onto your personal garden board. Tiles are two-sided, showing flowers on one side and pathway on the other. You can choose whichever side to use, but your first path must touch an edge of the board, and all future paths must connect to your existing path along at least one edge. Flowers, however, can be placed anywhere on the board. There are symbols on the board that trigger when covered, like scoring points, drawing a card from your deck, or getting to place a kinship cube on the main board. That last action is also the 5th and final action on the main board, placing a kinship cube. This lets you, hold your breath here folks, place a cube on this massive central board, which has 5 spaces on it, one for each of 5 fairy houses in the game. If at any point a player has at least 10 cubes in one of these spaces, they take the corresponding house tile and place it on their garden board. That tile is theirs to keep forever.
Forever, forever, ever, forever, ever.
Those house tiles double the score of the flower tiles at game end, which alone score 1 point per square of the tile if at least one square is touching a path tile. Also, at the end of the game, the player with the most cubes on each of the 5 spaces of the main board get a point for every cube on that space, and the player in second place gets a point only for each of their own cubes. Now, real quick, let's talk about these cards. The cards are organized into suits for each of the 5 fairy houses in the game. And while I'd love to say that they are all unique and different, they all tend to do fairly similar things. Some of them may give you points, maybe for how many flower tiles you have in your garden, or how many cards of a suit you have in your hand, or still in your deck. Others let you place and or manipulate the kinship tokens on the board, maybe adding some of your own, or moving or removing those belonging to other players. Some let you further manipulate cards in the game, like drawing more cards, or swapping cards with another player. And a handful let you place some extra garden tiles in your garden. So while they're all sort of unique, they really just provide variations on a small variety of themes. And you know what? That's kind of what this whole game does. You can build a deck of sort of similar cards that at most you can play 2 of on your turn. You can build a very sparse little garden of generic tiles that provide generic rewards. And you can move around a bunch of cubes in a random one-dimensional tug-of-cube war. Trust me, I'm positive that the one person in the world who's been eager for a deck-building, area-controlling polyomino fairy garden building game is watching this right now with eyes the size of dinner plates. And by all means, go get this game. In fact, you can probably just have this one. But none of these mechanisms are pulled off in a way that puts any excitement into this game whatsoever. The area control element of the main board is just chaos. Even at 2 players, we struggled like mad to get 10 cubes on the same space. I can't imagine how frustratingly random it'd be at 4. Meanwhile, even when built out, the garden boards look boring, plain, and generic. Even the actions themselves are unimaginative and lackluster. For example, since everyone copies the chosen action, you never want to be the one to trigger the card draw action. It's better to let someone else burn an action to take it, and you get to reap the benefits and still get a full turn. And honestly, those are just the parts of the game that are boring. Let me real quick mention the parts of the game that are just flat out bad. The main board, which just houses the 5 action spots and the 5 area control areas, is easily twice the size it ever needed to be. The rulebook, on the other hand, is probably half the size it should be, since it leaves out a ton of seemingly necessary instructions. For example, it guides you through the setup, telling you to gather your cubes, your garden board, and 4 starting cards, which are all the same, and tells you to place them on your left. It specifically tells you where to place your draw pile, but then it never instructs you as to whether or not you start the game with any cards in your hand, despite telling you on the very next page that you'll take an action and play a card on every one of your turns. It also never explains whether or not action spaces are blocked by other players, or whether or not you can take the same action you took on your previous turn. But perhaps the most ridiculous aspect of this entire game is the score track idea. Along the top edge of each garden board are the numbers 1 through 10, with multiples of 10 shown down the right side. The idea is that you'll keep one of your pawns on the grid space of your garden corresponding to your score. This of course means that you'll be constantly lifting it out of the way to put tiles underneath it, or in our case we were frequently knocking this thing off the table anyways. In fact, I think we made it about 3 rounds before I replaced this with a generic score counter I've made for other games. In the end, Faeries and Magical Creatures is a game that adds up to less than the sum of its parts. I'm just not exactly sure what this game wanted to be when it grew up. I mean, I love deck building games, but these cards are so simple, and the synergies I think Glenn was going for here are so unlikely to coalesce. I'm okay with polyomino games, and I usually accuse them of trying to do too much with each tile placement. But this game is the complete opposite. There's not much else you're trying to work towards here other than a score. And is there really any need for the workers and the action spots on this board if you're simply picking one of 5 actions each turn, with only 2 or 3 of them really being worth taking? Listen, I realize that maybe I'm coming at this from far too lofty of a viewpoint, having played many other truly great games. But that list includes games from this very same publisher-designer combo, like the aforementioned Mosaic. I think that's why it seems weird to see something so drab and lifeless released in the shadow of a game like Mosaic. Like I said, maybe you're the one person out there who's been waiting for just this game, and I fully believe that every game is someone's favorite game, and that's totally fine. Personally, I give this a 5, and I'm confident...
Dad, I'm ready. Let's get this over with.
Gee, sweetie, I kind of cut the whole butterfly kit.
But you told me to get dressed up for this. I've been getting ready for a half hour.
Is that a troll?
What? Hey, get back here. Cheers.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.